The Spud Fit challenge does not solve all of your problems. It actually magnifies and exaggerates all your problems, and it shines a big spotlight on your mental processes that you go through when you're making decisions around food. It'll show you exactly how your self-talk works and how what I call the inner junkie, the little voice that lives in your head that says, just this little bit, just this once, how that inner junkie convinces you to do things that are against your will. G'day again, Spuddies. It's good to be back. We're doing another video. This is 3 on the trot now. We're rocking and rolling with YouTube again. So I wanted to talk today about, well, there are 2 sort of core concepts which underpin everything we do at Spud Fit, which we rely on to help gain control of the way we eat and gain control of our health. The first one is calorie density, and that was the last video. So go back and watch that one if you want to know more about calorie density. But the second of our core concepts is the abstinence model. So food addiction, overeating, binge eating, basically any sort of disordered kind of eating which results in you taking in too many calories and gaining weight and those sorts of things. The overwhelming majority of people out there tend to want to treat those, I call them food addictions, with everything in moderation. They want to say, you can still have all those trigger foods, those foods that you love to eat, that that you enjoy eating. You can still have all of those foods. Just have a little bit every now and then. I've tried a million times, like more times than I can count. I tried to do moderation. I'm betting pretty much everyone who is watching has tried and failed at moderation plenty of times. That was something that had let me down over and over and over again. One particular really successful month, I did a really good job. I lost some weight. I was getting fitter. Things were going really well. And then on the last day of the month, I thought, I need a reward. I deserve a reward. I should have a slice of pizza for dinner. And that'd be a really good reward for a month well done. Of course, you probably know how the story goes. That slice of pizza turned into a whole family-sized pizza, followed by ice cream and Coca-Cola and all that stuff. And it turned into a huge binge. And the next day, I was feeling depressed and sorry for myself and, ready to basically give up and just submit myself to just being fat and depressed forever. And I had a realization that day that actually the way that I have always behaved with food is very similar to the way an alcoholic behaves with drinking. We've all known an alcoholic that has been able to quit for a while and has done a really good job. Some sort of special event comes along and they just one drink won't hurt, just this once. I'll just have a little drink and I'll go back to being sober tomorrow. And of course, it never works like that. Well, not never, but most of the time. Most of the time it doesn't work. Most of the time, one drink is the top of a slippery slope. And that's exactly the way I was with food. Initially, that was a very depressing thought because you can't quit food. Like a cigarette smoker can quit cigarettes, a gambler can quit gambling. A drug or alcohol addict can quit those things. You can stop doing them entirely. A food addict can't. And that was a really big problem for me. That made me even more depressed. So I put a lot of thought into this idea of abstinence. I really just wanted a break. I just needed to stop having to make decisions around food. An alcoholic doesn't have to decide, am I going to drink, wine today or beer today, or am I going to drink, bourbon or whatever, cocktails. It doesn't matter. The decision isn't which kind of drink should I have today. It's just, do I drink or do I not? There's one decision to make. That's it. And I wanted food to be that simple. And I wished with all my heart that I could just stop eating entirely and stop having to make decisions. Am I going to eat or am I not? And leave it at that. But of course, you can't quite do that with food. So I started to wonder how close I could get to that. And I started to wonder if maybe there would be one food that I could eat exclusively and get all the nutrition that I need and be healthy while being as close as possible to only having that one decision to make. Do I eat or do I not? And so I did a lot of research. I read a lot. I won't bore you with the research for now. That's for other videos. But I arrived at potatoes. obviously. Potatoes were a food that's low in calorie density, so it's not going to trigger the pleasure centers in your brain that get you excited and drive you to overeat. And also they're boring. We love potatoes, but there's lots of great things you can do with them. But in the end, just plain potatoes, they're relatively boring. And that was an important thing as well. You don't get bursts of flavour really that make you go, wow, this is amazing. They're good. They're not. There's nothing wrong with potatoes. They're okay, but they're not exciting. They're not going to drive you to eat more. So potatoes were the perfect food to choose for my abstinence model experiment. During this period of research that I did, I read a lot about addiction itself as well, and I discovered that over 90% of addiction treatment facilities or centres use the abstinence model. It's ubiquitous. It's everywhere. That's what is commonly accepted. Not everywhere, but close to everywhere. It's commonly accepted that the abstinence model is the thing for dealing with addiction. But I couldn't find anyone who was doing abstinence with food. Well, I could. That's not quite true. I could find people that were doing abstinence with food, but not quite to the level that I was doing it. They weren't trying to take it as close as possible to quitting entirely. There was people, I quit sugar, that sort of thing. I really wanted to get as close as possible to full on quitting everything. So we started the Spud Fit Challenge. Well, I started the Spud Fit Challenge January 1st, 2016. So just like an alcoholic only has one goal, don't drink. My Spud Fit Challenge also only had one goal, eat potatoes. That's it. I didn't have a weight loss goal. I didn't have a health goal. I just wanted to eat potatoes, just the same way that an alcoholic just wants to not drink. That was all I wanted to do. And by focusing on that and keeping my focus very narrow and keeping it extremely simple, it was able to teach me so much about myself. Because the thing is, the Spud Fit Challenge does not solve all of your problems. It actually magnifies and exaggerates all your problems, and it shines a big spotlight on your mental processes that you go through when you're making decisions around food. It'll show you exactly how your self-talk works and how what I call the inner junkie, the little voice that lives in your head that says, just this little bit, just this once, how that inner junkie convinces you to do things that are against your will. A cigarette smoker, every cigarette smoker knows that they're better off without smoking, and most cigarette smokers are probably trying to quit, or at least have tried to quit, but for some reason they keep going back to them. And why? Because that little voice in their head tells them to, and they don't understand how to deal with that voice in their head and how to debate and have those conversations that you need to have with yourself to be able to get through and not make those poor choices. So this is what the Spud Fit Challenge is all about. This is what my potato only Spud Fit Challenge is all about. It's not about potatoes. It's about learning about yourself and becoming aware of your own thoughts and processes around making decisions, and then using that learning and awareness to come up with plans for yourself of how you're going to combat that inner junkie. But that's only step one of what we do at Spud Fit. That's only step one, the Spud Fit Challenge. Once you're finished with that, we move on to what we call the Mega Foods plan. It's a slow transition. You start adding other foods in, and we keep following that calorie density rule that we talked about in the last video. And we introduce lots of foods gradually so you can figure out what works for you and what doesn't, what foods might be triggering for, as far as encouraging you to overeat, and what are not. And it's a constant evolutionary process of learning and self-discovery. You learn about how those foods work for you and how you can make it all fit in with your life. So step one, Spud Fit Challenge. Step two, the Mega Foods plan. I always say that the food is the easy bit. Knowing what to eat is the easy bit. The hard bit is being able to stick with it in the long term. So that's what we focus on here as far as our Spud Fit Challenge and our Mega Foods plan goes. We're going to tell you what foods are healthy and what foods are going to be less likely to trigger you to want to overeat. But we're going to spend most of our time and most of our focus and energy on learning how to actually make that stick, how to change your habits of mind change the way you think about certain situations and look at life and food and the world in a different way, so that you are more able to make consistent good decisions without having to use willpower. That's really important. That's the most important part. If you're relying on willpower, you are doomed to fail. Willpower runs out. We need a solution that doesn't involve willpower. So that's what we're focusing on with our Spud Fit Challenge and our Mega Foods plan, in our courses and in our books. The new Mega Foods book is coming out soon, by the way. So one of the major criticisms around the abstinence model when it comes to food is that you just feel deprived. You know, a lot of people, one of the big things that I hear from people is, I really want to do this, but I couldn't go without my cheese, or I couldn't go without my chocolate or my bacon, or I couldn't go without my favorite fast food restaurant, or whatever the case may be. And people tend to, understandably, because I have done that in myself in the past, we focus on what you're missing out on and what you're giving up. And I think it's really important to understand. I have this saying, it goes, if you don't sacrifice for what you want, then what you want becomes the sacrifice. And it's a really important thing to remember, because when we're focusing on this deprivation, I can't do that because it's so boring or it's so bland and I'll be missing out on all this good stuff. You need to just take stock of your life and take stock of where you're at. And if you're struggling with your weight or your health, then there is so much of life that you are currently missing out on. You're missing out on feeling good about yourself. Most importantly, you're missing out on fitting into the clothes that you like, or having a lean body that does the things that you want it to do and looks the way you want it to look. You're missing out on having self-confidence and self-esteem. I used to hate looking in the mirror. I used to avoid it at all costs. And I wouldn't say I love looking in the mirror now, but I don't mind it. It's okay. You're missing out on so many little things in life that they just make up so much more than, you can't eat cake every now and then. Like once you get through those initial stages and you learn this new way of thinking and seeing food, you get to the point where life is different and you see things differently, and life is to be lived. Life is to be lived. This is why we always say, eat simply, live fully. They're simple meal plans. Spud Fit Challenge and Mega Foods plan, they're very simple. They're easy, they're basic foods, they're tasty and nice, and you're going to enjoy the food, especially on the Mega Foods plan. It's enjoyable, but it's not about that. It's about living fully, embracing life, squeezing every last drop out of it, and just doing things that you love to do, and not avoiding things that you would like to do but you can't because of your weight. You can't fit on the roller coaster with your kid or whatever it may be. It's really important that we change that deprivation mindset and learn to see that this is actually a diet of abundance. It's not abundance in the foods that you can eat. It's abundance in experience and joy and happiness and all of those sorts of things. So again, the Mega Foods Plan book is coming out in a couple of days, 28th of April. We're in April now, yeah. 28th of April. And it just so happens to coincide with Mega Foods May. So that's going to be our membership. We're going to have this big challenge as we did last year, and I think we did it the year before as well. Mega Foods May. Let's all get together and have a big May of learning to follow the Mega Foods plan and learning to change the way we think about and relate to food, and learn to deal with that monkey mind and tame the inner junkie. Do it with us. Come along for the ride. Links below to those things. Don't forget to comment below, like the video, ask me all your questions, give me all your comments, subscribe to the channel, and eat simply and live fully.